I just thought of something and I don't think it can ever be said enough. Since some women never get out of abusive relationships, whether they are married or not, I am a domestic abuse and domestic violence survivor in various situations. I'm not going to get into it because I don't feel like explaining it for 10 minutes, but both times were violent or a threat of violence, intimidation, swearing, narcissism. My son's father used to throw things at me to cause a miscarriage. He tried to sit on me when I was 3 months pregnant. It's a miracle I didn't have a miscarriage. He tried to throw a toaster oven, I think, at me. I think it was a toaster oven. I don't remember everything. It's been 13 years. He tried to cause a miscarriage that way too. I know he wanted to drug me, but he knew he couldn't get away with it. He cheated on me and then paid somebody to lie to me about it. When I asked his brother, who had spent the night while I was in the hospital because of a totally different story, he wouldn't answer me. Like, he kept trying to get away from me as fast as he could. I was like, okay, so he cheated on me. I already knew who he cheated with too. He had his eye on her as soon as she moved in because he knew she was a stoner. Everybody knows what that means. I couldn't deal with it all. I remember breaking down one night and I almost called my dad to tell him to come get me, and I still should have. But Aaron walked in. That's his name. Aaron walked in as I was picking up the phone. He was high, but he was being his version of funny, my version of stupid. I knew that I wasn't in danger at the moment, but I knew that I had to figure something out. I ended up staying with his cousin long term instead of telling my parents what was going on. They would have let me stay with them temporarily. It still bothers me that I didn't tell my parents what was going on, because they are the kind of parents that, one, already knew, and two, was waiting for the opportunity to get me out. I was single for 10 years, dude. 8 years, whatever. I had Jake when I was 19, and I met Mike when I was 28, so that's 9 years. 9 years of being single and wondering if every time I go out I will meet the guy I'm supposed to be with. Something told me long before I ever paid attention to it, that my soulmate wasn't in Texas, but where my sister lived, because she was in BYU, Utah. So I decided to take a risk and come out here. I was verbally abused by Mike's brother for months. I don't even have time to explain it all. Just intimidation, calling me names, calling my son names, and trying to take my son's phone away from him so that he can read my old texts between people. I mean, it was good that the texts and calls were so outdated. But it was none of his business. He would get drunk and then he would get aggressive. And I did fear that he would sexually assault me. Everyone says that he wouldn't, but being a former victim of that, my son's father used to go in both ways, whether I wanted him to or not. It wasn't an option whether I wanted him to, it was if he wanted to. I am shaking right now saying this, but if anybody understands, I'm sure anybody understands what I mean by that. Anyone who is mature enough to. So, obviously, I would be paranoid that Mike's brother would do the same thing, planned to do the same thing. My father agreed with me that he did. I wasn't the only one. Anyway, I am far away from all of that now, as far away as possible. And I am okay. My son was never harmed in any way. He is okay. We are all doing good. Life isn't perfect, but I am not waking up to that anymore. And that's the goal for every victim of domestic abuse and domestic violence, is to be safe, to wake up to safety. And holy shit, this is going to be 10 minutes. Almost 10 minutes. It is the main goal of every domestic abuse survivor. Doesn't matter what kind it is. All forms of abuse are abuse. Verbal, sexual, physical, mental, psychological, all of it. I would say that my son's father was definitely worse. Definitely worse. There is no comparison, but I can barely even breathe when Mike's brother walks into a room. I am that sensitive now. I was not sensitive to myself as a witch, empath, healer, etc. I wasn't conscious of that when I was with Aaron. I was conscious of it when I lived with Mike's brother temporarily. So that also works in the favor of every witch that exists. Thank you for listening. Oh, and by the way, let's end the silence on domestic violence.